that is a really cryptic, useless phrase that companies will put on food items to try to just make you feel like, oh, this is healthier.
You've just tuned into Rebel Wellness Podcast, your resource for realigning and revitalizing your health and well-being. I'm your host, Kaylee, also known as Coach Kales. I'm a holistic health educator, certified nutritionist, and fitness professional of nearly a decade. I'm stoked to have you with us. You just joined a community of amazing souls who are ready to break free from the confines of the often outdated and confusing health advice all around us. Living in a world overwhelmed by quick fix diets and unrealistic beauty and body standards, us rebels stand for change. If you're like me, you're exhausted with the confusion and polarization plaguing the social media health scene. My mission is to empower you to step beyond today's diet culture, adopt a holistic health approach paired with the foundations of science for lasting, well-rounded wellness. Through teaching you how to tune in and embrace your mind, body, and soul, we'll reject one-size-fits-all solutions, realigning you on a better path that honors your unique needs and values. With new episodes weekly, this podcast is your sanctuary for deep wellness exploration, featuring expert advice, real-life stories, and a true commitment to your growth. Your journey to better health and simplicity in life begins now. Let's jump right in. Welcome back, Rebel. This is part 2 of the Nutrition Labels episode. So if you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I highly recommend you go and listen to that because it's going to give you so much more context for what we were talking about today. So today we are, as promised, talking about my pro tips on how I personally look at nutrition labels as a certified nutritionist, what I've deduced down to be the quickest way to know if a food item is good for you, less ideal, or completely horrible for you. So it is just it's all information, by the way. I do want to just emphasize that food labels are all information. They are an offering from the company for you to better understand what this food item is going to do for you in your body or what it won't do for you. And it takes a little bit of detective work, unfortunately, to better understand them. So it's really great that you are here listening and learning about this because it's something that I think should be taught in schools, honestly. It really should. It's honestly extremely disappointing how much lack of general health and wellness for, United States consumers is taught to us at a younger age. I know it could be by design, if you want a conspiracy theory. But at the same time, this is great because I think that you're going to benefit from everything. Hopefully, if you've listened to part 1, you already have benefited from a lot of this conversation. So today we are going to go into that, as well as I'm going to give you all the down and dirty on the kind of sneaky ways that food companies will label things that is misleading and sometimes means something completely different. Sometimes we think that it means one thing, and in reality, that inverse relationship to reducing that macronutrient means something else goes up. So you're going to learn all about that today in today's episode. So I really hope you enjoy it. But as always, come join our Instagram community at Rebel Wellness Podcast or at Kaylee Loren if you want to join the nutritionist wellness holistic side of my entire business. And you can always come join our monthly wellness newsletter, coachkales.com. I'd love to see you join it. It is a fantastic, non-spammy wellness newsletter. And you can, if you sign up sooner, you'll get in time for the August drop. So everything that you need to know about nutrition labels, we are going to continue that conversation right now. And let's get into what I personally look at first when deducing a nutrition label. First thing I do is actually not what you'd expect. I think some people would expect to look at the calories or the serving size. No, I don't waste my time unless the test is passed from looking at the ingredients list. So first, I will always look at the ingredients list. So if I'm purchasing either like a pasta item, or let's just go with some chips or something like that. I'm not a big chips fan. I was not raised on chips, so I don't default to chips. But if you are a chips person, let's say you buy potato chips, okay? The first ingredient, you would really like to see potatoes, right? I mean, that's dominantly the item that you're trying to eat. So if the number one ingredient is not potatoes, red flag, put it away. You're not going to get what you're looking for. Okay. And the other thing, like again, with pasta, the first thing you should see is probably whatever is the dominant binder. So you're going to either see like wheat products or any type of flour of whatever, like rice flour, if you're going for like a rice pasta or a rice based pasta, wheat or semolina or einkorn flour, a whole lot of those types of grains are going to be the first ingredient. Chickpea, if you're doing a chickpea pasta, things like that. Okay. So you always want to see the number one ingredient be what is advertised on the package. So if it's again, rice based, let's say brown rice pasta, number one ingredient should be brown rice flour, whatever. Okay. And then next, you will usually want to see something like water was involved or a variety of other ingredients that helped to create whatever it is that are recognizable. Okay. So if you don't recognize it, again, your body will not recognize it either. So if you can't figure out what the heck the thing is, your body is probably going to be confused while it's digesting it. And we have not a lot of intel on exactly what happens to certain like chemicals and things that go through our body that are artificial, other than we do know that a lot of it tends to build up if it's not processed out naturally. If we have it can back up our detox organs, such as like your liver and your pancreas and all that kind of stuff, and your stomach, your intestines. It can cause leaky gut. It can cause, which is caused by inflammation, because when your gut lining is inflamed long term, it's going to open up those little gaps that are in the cell walls, and then food particles and things get into the bloodstream, and then that can go all the way to things like Hashimoto's thyroiditis. So we know a lot more now about some of the ways it impacts our gut and the inflammation, but we don't know what all those exact chemicals can do. However, we have seen a lot of evidence that there's a lot of carcinogenic activity, especially when it comes to highly, highly processed, man-made in a lab meats, for example, with a lot of the vegan fake meats, Beyond Meat, all that. Even though it's cool, maybe it looks good, maybe it tastes good, but it is completely foreign, completely made in a lab. Just because it's recommended generally as safe doesn't mean your body actually will react individually properly. And we do know now that they do cause cancer, because our bodies are like, what the heck is this weird fake thing that you keep putting in me? Can you just eat something real for once? So I would say be very conscientious about these fake alternative things, because again, if you read the chemicals in the back and they are very confusing and weird, I would steer clear. Okay. That is just a really good rule of thumb that nutritionists across the board, well-trained ones at least, will tell you, is you just got to know how to discern the ingredients list. One note though about the ingredients list is that everything is going to be listed by descending weight. So manufacturers can use like more than 2 forms of sugar and they will appear lower on the list. So you won't see them quite at the top. I mean, it's usually a red flag if within the first 4 ingredients there's sugar, unless you're eating it for it to be a carbohydrate source. Or a specific sugar source, but just pay attention to how much sugar is in all these processed things that you eat. And because they add up, guys, they add up really fast. But they will add other forms of sugar lower on the list, just so it's a little bit more vague and not as like obvious. And so that's something to pay attention to. And you'll see like little phrases like natural flavors or spices and things like that. You kind of have to pay attention to that as well, because sometimes that's also a very vague phrase. I'm going to talk about that here at the end in a moment, but those are things to be aware of, because it's like if it doesn't explicitly say which spices or what natural flavors, that's a little bit of a yellow red flag as well. Okay. So oftentimes you will see things that say like some cane sugar, and then later lower down, it'll say brown rice syrup. And then it'll also say like high fructose corn syrup or something like that. That means that there's quite a bit of sugar actually involved in that food item. So just pay attention to those things. Those are like good little things to pay attention to when you are trying to decide if this food item has an okay amount of ingredients or if it has like just too many. I will always put it down if I just see like way too much junk and it's something that I am trying to eat for, nourishment. Most of the time I'm looking at labels because I want to pick things that are going to nourish me. I eat 3 meals a day. And I'm an active person, so I need stuff that'll take care of me so that I can take care of myself. It's a form of self-love, guys. How you feed yourself is a form of self-love. So it's really important that most of the stuff that I purchase is understandable and has the right ingredients for what I'm looking for. There are, again, definitely times where I don't really care. I know that the label is whack and I'm going to look at it and be like, yikes, but I'm still going to eat some of these. And that's just like balance, or we can call that harmony, because balance typically means kind of like 50-50, you know what I mean? And I definitely am more of a 85-15, 80-20 at times, sometimes 90-10, depends on what the goal is in the moment or what the situation is, Okay, so next, after the ingredients list, I will look at the serving size, because if the ingredients pass, I want to see like what is the expected serving size. So again, if this is something that I'm planning to eat the whole package because it's like a whole single serving food item, or I'm planning to eat like 2 of them because 1 isn't enough for my active lifestyle, then I will probably be like, okay, well, does this times 2 or times how many servings I'm planning to have make sense? Like, is this highly calorically dense? Because processed food can become really calorically dense because they are processing food items into something else, and therefore it becomes easier to overeat. So think Pop-Tarts. Pop-Tarts have an insane amount of calories and carbs and all that stuff packed into a little Pop-Tart, and sometimes we forget about it, and eating 2 Pop-Tarts is, I think it's upwards of like 70 something grams of carbs, which is quite a bit. I mean, usually we like to stay, for most average adult females, anywhere from 40 to 60 grams of carbs a meal, depends on how active you are and such. But if you're a moderately active or lower activity adult female, you're probably wanting to stay around that 40 to 50 grams of carbs per meal. With that said, you want to gauge, if you're looking at a food item and you're planning to eat more than just 1 serving, is it reasonable? Okay, so that's something important to note. And then also you can kind of go back to what I had previously said about serving size, where sometimes companies will be tricky about it, kind of like those Lenny and Larry's cookies. If you're going to eat the whole dang cookie, you got to know exactly how many calories you're going to consume, because, I mean, again, calories just correlate to the macronutrients. So if it's a cookie, it's probably high in carbs and fat. Yeah, that's where you're going to get most of your calories. So learning that is really helpful, and it helps you kind of deduce that like calories are not mysterious. However, calories can be mysterious when you have food items that are highly processed and they have really low calorie, because then you start to wonder, what ingredients did you guys use, or what processed food particles did you put together to make a full-size cookie or bag of little cookies, and they hardly have any calories or they hardly have any carbs, And it's a red flag when you see really high fiber. Anything above like 15 grams of fiber in a serving is going to make you kind of bloaty, farty. That's a little bit too much of insoluble fiber, which means that your gut's going to be a little bit angry about it. It's kind of like when you switch into a high fiber diet. So for a lot of people who've either experimented with like vegan or vegetarian, or they are vegan or vegetarian, or whatever, whatever past history you may have had with a higher fiber diet, or you went somewhere and you had like a bunch of high fiber foods like grain bowls and stuff, and if you got really farty, or maybe some diarrhea, who knows, that is a common effect of when you acutely eat too much fiber. And so when people don't live a lifestyle of high fiber and then they suddenly eat high fiber in these processed foods that just can jam pack these food items with a fiber that they took from something else and put into this food item to make it quote unquote low carb, you might see side effects like that are not great. So that's where you kind of look into it and see, okay, if the carbohydrate says like 30 grams and then the dietary fiber says like 17 grams or 23 grams, so the net carb is really low, like 12 grams of carbs or something like that, that's kind of a red flag to me personally, because I know that the fiber source, then I'll go look at the ingredients list. Let's say it says psyllium husk fiber. That's probably going to irritate my gut and make me kind of bloaty and gassy or something like that. And therefore, I'm like, I'm not a big fan of that food item. I probably will pass on it. But just know for yourself, it doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing, but it is a sneaky way that companies like to make low carb food items or high fiber food items, because they can take a highly isolated fiber from a different food source and put it into this processed food item. Okay, so after I look at the serving size, I will, same timeline. Usually I'll look at serving size and then calories, just try to see where the total carbs, fat, and proteins are, because knowing where the macronutrients are can come really in clutch. It can come in clutch because then you can better understand if this food item is going to be a good source of protein, like it states on the front. If it only has like 8 grams of protein, I'll be like, that's not a good source of protein. And so just being aware of that food item, what you want it to do for you. You know, if you're buying pasta, it's a carb source, right? But you shouldn't see a lot of fat in it. You can see higher protein, but you're not going to see a crazy amount of protein. Again, if you do, red flag. Like I'll kind of look at it and be like, where is the protein coming from? You know, so like we recently learned in one of the past episodes, most recent past Hot Take Summers about Banza pasta, even though the chickpea has been isolated to be the chickpea protein in the pasta, we are also seeing that highly processing certain plant proteins is actually making it less bioavailable in the body as well. So even if it shows up as a nice food item to protein stack, I guess is the term they're using nowadays, it's not actually bioavailable, meaning that your body may not actually be able to break it down and utilize that protein. So therefore it's useless. It's kind of just, again, a food scam. So you want to be paying attention to the food sources where you're getting certain things. As I always have told a lot of my clients and a lot of people know that high quality, complete animal-based protein is going to be the most bioavailable multivitamin of the planet. You know what I mean? And so it is really important that you consider mixing those things into your diet if you're trying to have a higher protein diet, because all of that protein will immediately go to be used for immune system, muscle building, skin, hair, eye health, hormone health, all that stuff is going to be immediate from that. You can achieve it through plant-based. It's going to be harder. You run the risk of a little bit more lack of variety in types because a lot of people don't eat a diverse plant-based protein diet, and you do need different sources to complete the protein amino acid profile. So important for you to consider how you eat and where you want to get those things if you are paying attention to that. But that's a little caveat because it's just important that some people understand that just because a lot of food items say high protein, if like most protein bars, I'll always see like soy protein isolate. And for a lot of people who are high estrogen, you shouldn't be consuming non-organic soy in high amounts every day. And because then you're going to be proliferating the high estrogen issue because phytoestrogens are very high in soy products because of a lot of different reasons. And therefore you can kind of keep pushing a problem longer than ideal when you're eating a lot of soy products. So you do need to diversify your protein, or at least highly prioritize organic where you can, organic non-GMO soy, stuff like that. Okay. It's like there's so many little things that we can go into that is really important, but it's hard because like deducing these ingredients, there's so many little things to say about each ingredient, you know what I mean? So I won't get into it too much, but I just wanted to kind of pop in some little examples for you because I think it's really important you are aware of those things. And then the last thing is if all the boxes are checked when I look at the ingredients, the serving size, the calories, total carbs, fat, protein for the item, I'm just going to look at the sources of sugars and fats because it's really important to know like what the sugar source is. Is it a highly processed form of sugar? Is it a natural form of sugar? Honestly, guys, I'm not really scared of cane sugar if it's just presented as cane sugar, if it's in a smaller amount, because it's going to be at least a natural source of sugar. It's not going to be a highly processed, extracted from corn or brown rice or whatever type of sugar. And again, it's going to just be straight up glucose into the system. So I'm going to be utilizing carb foods when I use the most energy in the day. So I usually have higher carb meals for breakfast and lunch, and I keep my dinners pretty low carb where I can, unless it was a very strenuous day or I did a big leg day or something like that. You know what I mean? So that's a really good rule of thumb if you're trying to manage your blood sugars and therefore your hormones and therefore your body composition. Way better is to try to just load all your carbs around the most active parts of your day because carbs are energy, and then keep it lower carb, higher fat, higher protein for your dinners because it's completing your day and you don't need as much carbohydrates because you're planning to sleep soon. You're just going to be a potato in bed, right? So look at where the sugars are from. And then I also like to see where the fats are from. If there's a ton of seed oils, you know, there's a lot of conversation on seed oils. I believe I did an episode of seed oils. I believe I did. You know, I'm at that stage of podcasting with a bunch of topics where I'm like, did I talk about this already? If I haven't, I will definitely do one. I believe I did last Hot Take Summer, but anyways, there's a lot of interesting things, especially that I've been learning the last half year as more research has been coming out and more conversations have been coming out. You'll get nutrition doctors like Huberman and Lane Norton and stuff just kind of going at it over the whole seed oils thing. I mean, you'll see so many people on all platforms arguing about it. However, one thing is inarguable: people's real life experiences. I do know that there's even, lead nutritionists for some of the top pro basketball leagues that insists that the players during the season do not eat any seed oils. So that's like canola oil, grapeseed oil, corn oil. There's a whole corn oil? I think so. I mean, that's a grain oil, which is, I mean, you think about it, corn doesn't have oil really easily. So if you have to really process something to get oil out of it, that's kind of like a red flag, in my opinion. But anyways, no seed oils are allowed during their season, and their performance and their immune system and a whole bunch of different things go up exponentially when they remove that from their diet. So a lot of people I know, and even for myself, I don't cook with canola oil. I have never done it when I've been home by myself ever since being an adult and cooking for myself. I stick to extra virgin olive oil, extra virgin holy avocado oil. There's a lot of avocado oil that's on the market that is not just avocado oil. Again, read the labels. And then extra virgin coconut oil. I will use tallow at times for things, and real organic grass-fed butter. Those are the best fat sources that are the most natural, even though a lot of things have been demonized, such as like butter. If you eat a balanced, dominantly whole food diet and you cook majority of your meals, you're not going to be at risk of the adverse reactions to high butter diets and things like that, or high saturated fat diets. Again, I talked about that earlier this episode. So knowing the composition of the meals you eat and how you dominantly eat can really play a huge role in your success with what fats you put into your diet. And they're always cooking with canola oil and stuff at restaurants. So if you eat out at restaurants once, twice, or more, once or twice a week, not a big deal. More than that a week, you probably should be a little bit aware of what is going into the food, because they do tend to use lower quality oils and oils that can sustain high heat. Hence why canola oil is so popular. It was originally designed to be a lubricant for machines back in the day, no joke. And then they discovered that it's actually generally safe to eat for humans. And so they started to put it into shelf-stable items because it doesn't go rancid as fast. And then they also they cook with it because it can sustain high heat, high temperatures with cooking. And that's really big because then things don't burn and all that kind of stuff. However, it is, again, inflammatory, especially when it's combined with high carbohydrate diets. So I could go for days on that, but I won't. It's important for you to know when you're looking at your ingredients that you pay attention to that, so that you're just aware, okay? It is really important just to be aware. And then the last thing you can always look at is the sodium. But again, it's an essential mineral. We do need it. And if you're drinking enough water daily, like over 75 ounces, you should be fine, because if you have healthy kidneys, assuming you have healthy kidneys, your body will flush it out for you. So there's not as much to be concerned about in that zone of like sodium building up in your body. But again, pay attention to whatever your current health situation is. If you hold on to a lot of water, like if you eat a high sodium food item and you get really puffy, if you drink a bunch of water and that puffiness doesn't come off, then you probably don't process, your kidneys are not functioning as well as they could. Okay, so pay attention to some of those little cues that your body shows you. But more often than not, a large majority of my clients will be like, oh my gosh, I went out this weekend and I gained weight. I gained like 3 pounds. And I'm like, okay, let's drink water. Literally all we change is just drinking water, kind of getting back on your normal weekly food routine. Okay, I dropped that water. Yeah, it was water weight. It's always water weight. If you gain weight through 2 days over the weekend, I guarantee it's just you're holding on to water weight because you didn't drink enough water, but you ate higher sodium foods or higher carby foods. So do know that. That is always important. So something that is important before we go into the misleading label phrases is it's important to know that when you're paying attention to that nutrient content at the bottom of the label, I don't, again, look at that very much because sometimes it's helpful. However, most of those micronutrients that come from whole foods that don't have a label. So your fruits, veggies, again,
high quality animal proteins and things like that. Those things don't usually come with nutrition labels. That's because they are just the purest form of high nutrition. If it has a nutrition label, it's usually a processed food item of some sort. It had to go through a process. Doesn't mean that it's as highly processed as maybe other processed foods. Think like Sour Patch Kids versus cottage cheese. Both of them go through a process to get to where they are, but one of them gets there with a lot more of a process and a lot more chemicals than the other, right? So that's something I really wanted to pay attention to. And I want to reiterate, anything less than 5% on the daily value is considered not a good source of that nutrient, and 20% or more is considered a good source of that nutrient. When you're looking at labels, I hope that you've got all of that down. I know there's a whole lot to learn. Go back and listen and maybe put some notes down on a piece of paper, again, or access my website, coachkels.com, download the free downloadable about nutrition labels, or my stand store. For that, you can go to the show notes to get your hands on that. So let's jump into some of the misleading label phrases to finish this conversation out. One of the biggest things that is a really cryptic, useless phrase that companies will put on food items to try to just make you feel like, oh, this is healthier, is all natural. So things labeled as all natural can still be containing natural chemicals that have been added, which can be a whole lot of different things. So that can mean anything that is a derivative from an originally natural food product, byproduct, whatever it is. So this can be kind of dumb to say all natural. However, also all natural, you'll see that like on chicken breasts, and you're like, well, I hope that that's all natural. Like, what else could they do to it? They could actually do quite a bit of stuff to chicken breasts, which is again why I usually err towards organic only when it comes to my animal proteins, because that means that they can't add in quite as much of the fillers that they puff up the chicken breast with so they're nice and juicy, and a bunch of different preservatives and things as well, because that's just not allowed in the regulations by the USDA organic. So when you see all natural, usually like on Foster Farms or some junk like that, it's like, yeah, that's great to know that it is all a natural chicken piece. However, what goes into it, how it was raised, all that different stuff is kind of the red flags with those food items. So you want to pay attention to that. But I would say overall, write off the all natural label. It is a dumb label. It's kind of scammy. So ignore that. So the other thing that you'll commonly see is low fat. Low fat almost always means higher sugar content, because reducing the fat content means that they need to make it taste better, because fat has a lot to do with how things taste on our palate. So usually if you're buying a low fat item, you're signing up for a higher carb item. So pay attention to that. It does also usually mean that it's more processed and less nourishing. So low fat does not necessarily mean it's healthier. If you are eating a low fat diet for some reason, I never recommend that for females. That is so old fashioned. It's really bad for our brain health. It's really bad for our hormone health. There's so many things that are not good about a low fat diet. However, if you are somebody who is, you should be paying attention to getting really good high quality fats for the grams of fat you're eating every day. So eating low fat food items is not ideal, because there's going to be usually fake fats or stabilizers and things to try to make it taste better and look proper and have the mouthfeel of being somewhat fatty still, with a lot more chemicals and things. So I avoid low fat food items. I mean, even low fat milk is not great, because it is one of those things where they again have processed it highly, and the pasteurization process is questionable nowadays. Where is it actually beneficial for you? I would say you should go for a high quality coconut milk, macadamia nut milk, or if you can tolerate dairy, just go for whole milk and stuff. If you're just putting a tablespoon in your coffee or tea or whatever, you're getting nourishment from that. There are really great nutrients that you can get from milk fat, and you're not going to be getting that many calories that actually matter. It's very old fashioned from our 50s, 60s, 70s moms that were basically being taught to eat nothing that had any flavor or any fat or any sugar. It was a really horrible, sad time for the culture of dieting. And unfortunately, a lot of those moms have taught our moms, who have taught us that low fat is better, low calories better, all this junk. No, it's actually making us sicker. A lot of women have early onset dementia because of it. There's a whole lot of things to be said about really bad side effects of following any of those things in life. Okay. So low fat, I would avoid unless there's a specific reason that you want to eat that way. But definitely make sure that you're getting enough good, healthy fats elsewhere. if you are eating low-fat food items dominantly. The 0 grams of sugar added is another label that is kind of misleading, because if you look at the nutrition label, you're going to want to know where the sugar is coming from, because they can say 0 grams of sugar added, but if it's like orange juice, for example, like it is by nature fructose, which is, say, remember, ose, anything with ose is a sugar. Fructose is the dominant sugar that comes from fruits. And so a cup or 2 cups of orange juice, which is like a glass, is going to be somewhere around 36 grams of sugar, which is equivalent to like a can of soda. So it's a lot of sugar. It's not the same source of sugar, however, but it is still very similar, and it still operates in the body pretty much the same. So they can say 0 grams of sugar added, but it's because it's already a sugar item. It's a highly processed squeezed out juice that has just fruit sugar. So that's a great thing to follow up a pre-workout, a post-workout, something again where you're going to use that energy, because sugar is energy. And I would avoid that like very early in the morning and very late at night, because those are things that are going to be counterproductive for your health when it comes to that much sugar in your day. But pay attention to 0 grams of sugar added. There's most likely sugar that's just naturally occurring, so they can say that, okay? So that is a little bit misleading as well. Whole grain is another one that is a little bit iffy, because it can say whole grain, but if the first ingredient isn't labeled as whole, it is not a valid source of whole grain. So if you're getting a whole grain bread and the first ingredient doesn't say 100% whole grain wheat, that's not a whole grain food item, or it just has whole grains in it, but it's not dominantly made out of whole grain. So it's not a good source of whole grains. Okay. So whole grain can be tricky as well. And the last thing I will say that is really, really, really popular is the term natural flavors. So based on the FDA's definition, natural in natural flavoring refers to the source of the flavor. So the source must be a naturally occurring item, such as a plant matter, meat, or dairy. But the FDA does not define the term natural, and there is no legal definition. So there can be countless ingredients into what is termed as natural flavor. So that's a little bit concerning, I would say, as to what is actually allowed to be called natural flavor. So like I was kind of saying before, it is a little iffy, because there is not a good definition of what is a natural flavor. But the FDA's Code of Federal Regulations, Title 21, says that natural flavor can be defined as an essential oil, olorosin, essence, extractive, protein hydrolysate, and distillate. So it can be any of those chemical processes off of a natural food item, again, plant matter, meat, or dairy, and a natural occurring item. And it could be any variation of that chemical process from that food item. So there's a large spread of whether or not it is actually a healthy version of it for you. A lot of people are kind of all back and forth about it. I would say how I view it is, again, look at the ingredients. If the natural flavor states what it's from, a lot of the more organic or just healthier companies will state exactly what it's from. So for example, I have like this watermelon hydration drink. The natural flavor says from real watermelon concentrate. So it's like watermelon that's been like concentrated down, so it has a flavor, but it's from like a natural watermelon. So for that, I'm like, okay, that's probably the most natural source that they could flavor something with, But when it comes to other things such as, Celsius energy drinks and things like that, yeah, we're not really sure where their natural flavors are coming from, how they're pulling it out of whatever they sourced it from, etc. So that could be a red flag, especially if you drink those things daily, weekly, whatever, at any sort of consistency.
All right, that's it for part 2 of this Nutrition Labels chat. I hope that it was helpful for you, and that if you have any other questions, or if there's any other things that you've seen on nutrition labels, like phrases or anything like that that I did not discuss, I'd love to hear about it so that I can talk about it on a future episode. So feel free to DM me at my @Rebel Wellness Podcast or at Kaylee Loren. Either page on Instagram is fine. And let me know some things that I missed, because I know there's so many weird little phrases that they put on nutrition labels to try to sneakily seem better than they actually are. And so let's talk more about that if you have some ideas. I hope that you will share this episode with somebody you think could benefit from learning more about nutrition labels. And if they are somebody who is chronically eating low fat or is always looking for low calorie, definitely share these part 1 and part 2 episodes with nutrition labels with them, because I think that will probably rock their world, hopefully. All right, Rebel. As always, celebrate your strength and nourishment, walk with confidence, and I will catch you on another episode of Rebel Wellness. What did you think about that episode? If you enjoyed it, I hope that you would come join my community on Instagram at Rebel Wellness Podcast, or my coaching page at Kaylee Loren, or both. I would love to see your name pop up on my new follows list. I might say hello if I catch you. And I would also like to invite you to come check out my website, coachkales.com, if you're interested in seeing any more of the educational learning resources I have created for you. I have a whole ton of amazing free downloads that you can dip your toe in the water of what working with me looks like. And if you are really vibing with what I have to say and how I teach it, come explore my courses that are available for purchase. They are all do it yourself. In the near future, I plan to have some awesome group coaching that will be all live, so stay tuned for that. And the best way to know when I'm going to launch those is through my monthly wellness newsletter, which is my hand-curated, not AI-generated, monthly all things health and wellness newsletter that I created to be your new favorite resource for staying up to date with the latest in the health world, self-care resources that I've created, and a bunch of the clean beauty picks that I personally use myself, and a whole lot more, as well as early access and discounts to anything that I create in the future for specifically my newsletter sign up. So if you'd like to sign up, head to coachkales.com and add yourself to my mailing list. Last but not least, I would absolutely love it if you would help our podcast grow by simply sharing a rating or review wherever you stream and are listening to me right now, and share it on your social medias or text it to some friends or family members if this episode resonated and was something that you think could help somebody else, because I really would love to help anybody in your circle if I've been helping you. So I absolutely am so grateful that you're here. And if you listened all the way through, you are a real one. So, all right, Rebel, until next episode.